What's good, family? Wow, your man the YB gotta say a big respect to the general #1 coin booster, Devil Dog 83, for running up your man the YB's situation right now. No doubt, 100% confirmed. So we got some breaking news right now regarding your man's team, TYSON. Fury, and it's bad. You best believe it. Yeah? All the rats are jumping off the sinking ship, it seems. And it's so ironic as well. I did a video yesterday, or a few days ago, and it was literally, not just Bob, but a lot of other people within Team Fury were saying, Kinahan's the man, he's not involved in anything, and he's #1 man. 2-2s now. All of a sudden, all the people who were saying, Bobby included, I played the clip, all the people who were saying how kosher he was, and, Maurizio Suleiman, in the last week or two, I did another video on him. He ranting and raving about how kosher El Trapahan is, and now all of a sudden, the man who you was just noshing off about how kosher he was, you're now saying, well, actually, he told me he was involved in some bad things in the past. Where was all this when? Where was all these claims? Where was all this woofing when you was sitting there rubbing his name off? Anyway, so the title of the article from the Irish Mirror is Bob Arum claims Daniel El Trapahan, aka El Chapohan Kinahan, has told him and confessed he's done bad things in his life, as the promoter continues to distance himself from the mob boss. It goes on. Bob Arum has now claimed that Daniel Kinahan told him he'd done some bad things in his past life, as the legendary promoter continues to distance himself from the mob boss. The Kinahan cartel have been hit with a number of sanctions as the net closes in on the $1 billion trap, and Arum also revealed that Daniel has paid him at least $4 million in consulting fees in the build-up to 4 of Tyson's fights. I'll bet. Wait a minute, Daniel's the manager. Daniel paying him $4 million fucking... This is mad. Truly mad. Same way the McGuigans came out and exposed MTK as well and said, listen, the reason everyone sucks off MTK, but the reason MTK are taking everyone's fighters, they don't charge management fees. And better yet, they actually pay fighters stuff like this. They pay fighters $4 million, or pay people $4 million for advisory fees. It's all a big wash. Money laundering wash, in my opinion. Allegedly. Oops. 100%. 100%. Anyway, it goes on. Speaking to Yahoo Sports, Arum revealed that he paid the money to Kinahan ahead of his 2 furious fights against Deontay Wilder and bouts against Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallin. Arum said how Kinahan opened up to him about doing bad things and said that Kinahan was hoping to get out of that other stuff. Speaking to Yahoo Sports, he said, Kinahan called me and we had a long conversation. He has kids and he said he wanted to get out of the other stuff. He said to me, Bob, I've done some bad things in my life, I admit that. But I'm not involved with that anymore. I'm just trying to clean up my life and be a legitimate businessman. I wasn't involved in any of the things he might have done before, and he was telling me he wasn't doing anything. Finally, the article says, he added, there came a time that we discovered that he might still have been involved in some nefarious activities, and that was enough for us. That's obviously Bob Arum saying that. Now, again, it makes me laugh because Bob Arum's sitting here saying, he told me he's involved in some bad things, and then it came to light he might be involved in some nefarious activities, and that was enough for us. Bob, what are you lying for? Bob, you came out after the feds dropped the case, or dropped the whatever it was. When the feds came out this week, that's when you did a 180 flip about, stop trying to gas the place up like you're some virtuous whatever. We saw, we knew he was into, or we had the minute we found out he was into something bad no, you didn't. You was literally, in the last 2 weeks, gassing, you and Maurizio Suleiman gassing about, no, He's not been charged. He's not this. I'm a lawyer. My name's Bob Arum, and I work for Top Wank. And Daniel's my number one friend, and all this kind of stuff. Now you're saying, oh, well, actually, we knew he was in some nefarious things, and the minute we found out, we said no more. You're lying. You was gassed. You was number one El Trapahan nosher until the US State Department dropped the case. Or, sorry, filed the case, or whatever you want to call it. And that's when your ass started flapping. And it's interesting, the way the rats are moving now, the way all these dudes are scurrying. Yeah, it's typical. This is typical of people. Because think about it, if you're not involved, or if you don't have any dodgy ties, you'd just keep your mouth shut, wouldn't you? For example, if Bob Arum isn't worried about anything, why is he suddenly coming out and riding it hard? He's really riding it hard. Now, I'm not sure. But even then, I was about to say, well, is it possible? In my last video, I said to you lot that it's not a shock that Bob Arum's come out and said this. Why? Well, Bob Arum's got a massive deal with ESPN. ESPN are not going to associate themselves with this kind of activity. So I understood Bob Arum coming out and splitting with MTK/Kinahan. I get that. But then to go another step further and start saying, well, he told me he's involved in some bad things, and he confessed to me that he's in... It's odd. It's almost as if, or this is usually what happens with snitches, or this is usually what happens with co-conspirators. Co-conspirators who, essentially, how it works in 9 times out of 10, within the justice system, you want to be the first to squeal. Do you understand? You want to be the first one to give up the goods, because I'll tell you what you don't want to be. You don't want to be the last one, because the last one, you're the one who's going to, you get the biggest rap. Once the feds know everything you know, or your information is useless. So it feels to me as if, why would Bob be going this? It's almost as if Bob's asking for the feds to knock his door. Do you understand? Like for example, whatever motive would it be? Why would Bob Arum come out and say, oh, he told me he's involved in some dodgy things? This for me is a public declaration that Bob Arum wants the feds to come knock on his door. Because if I was a fed listening to that, I'd say, wait a minute, he sounds like... Listen, what we know is, Bob Arum coming out and shutting it down a few days ago, that's fine. That doesn't imply anything. That just tells you, well, Bob's a corporate man, he doesn't want his name dragged into anything. Bob coming out and saying, well, yeah, he confessed a few things to me, and we thought he's involved in some nefarious activities, and all this kind of stuff. If I was a fed listening to that, I'd be like, listen, let's go knock this Don's door and put some pressure on his old ass. Yeah? And Bob's not stupid. Bob himself is a lawyer. So it wouldn't surprise me if he knows something. I'm not saying Bob's been moving food around the place. I'm saying, to some extent, whether it's money laundering or whatever, Bob's possibly been involved, and that's why he's putting... Bob can't be obvious and say, oh, feds, I want to snitch. Come talk to me. So an indirect way of doing that would be this kind of thing, this kind of messaging. Because, bear in mind, people, we know the State Department or whoever are implying they don't have a lot of information to go on. And as far as publicly speaking, out of everyone over the last X amount of time, who would you be? If you was a federal agent, who would you be focusing on now? Think about it. Tyson Fury's been silent. He ain't said nothing. A few other people have been silent. Of all the people, if you had a choice now to press someone, who would it be? Be Bob. 100%. I'll be straight around there right now. Because I'll be saying, well, clearly he wants to be a chatty patty. Because if you're doing Yahoo Sports interviews, because up until this point, up until today, yeah, none of us knew. I've never once heard Kinahan or someone alleged Kinahan to have said he's been involved in bad things in the past. I've never heard that. From the jump, the narrative's always been, I've never been convicted, I'm not involved in anything. So this is breaking. For the first time, we're hearing, even though it's hearsay to some extent, I don't believe hearsay, saying what someone else said to you doesn't stand up in court. But again, the feds don't need it to stand up in court. What the feds need to do is start putting pressure on people. So this, again, I can't see it, especially as a lawyer. Bob Arum trained as a lawyer. Why would you... Clearly, the feds' investigation they don't have any key men to focus on yet. That's why they're putting out the feelers saying we want anyone who knows anything. Well, out of the big wigs, i.e. out of the famous people, like I said, Bob Arum, I don't know, if I was working for the feds, Bob Arum would be the first person we're going to go to now. We're going to say, Bob, we saw you talking about how Kinahan's admitted things, confessed that he's been involved in bad things in the past, and etc., etc., etc. Bob Arum even said here that when he found out that they were involved, or it was implied they were involved in nefarious activities, they decided to go their separate ways. Well, Bob, what do you know? Because I don't understand. I guess it could be the case. It could be the case that Bob Arum has just gone too far in trying to distance himself. Yeah, we know from a corporate level, Bob Arum can't be linked with ESPN and be working with Kinahan straight up. So is this a case of Bob Arum just doing a bit too much woofing? I mean, going a bit too far. For example, Bob Arum came out and said, "I'm not working with Kinahan no more. He's done." That's obviously, that makes it quite clear. He didn't need to do any more than that, in my opinion. But could it be the case that Bob Arum's just a bit old, and he wanted to... You know what the social media age is like as well. People like to add their little flavour. Is that possible? I don't know. If I was to bet... It just seems fishy to me. If I was to bet right now, I'd bet that Bob Arum has some sort of guilt. Some sort of guilt to some level. And he looking for some sort of... He want to make a deal right now. Because there's also a thing in law called Queen for a Day. Queen for a Day is usually a deal they give to one of the first people that comes along. Queen for a Day means you can talk about anything you want and they can't do nothing against you. And that's often a deal. When the feds are... If the feds have got a load of evidence on you, you ain't going to get Queen for the Day. But in cases where the feds ain't got a clue about anything, they do tend to offer. For example, it was the most notable case where Queen for a Day was used was with was it Biggie or was it... Yeah, I think it was the Biggie killing. Oh no, was it Biggie or was it Tupac? One of them ones. Either way, that Greg Caden guy, they gave some bum drug dealer Don, they gave him a Queen for the Day, and he went in there and woofed it all, and basically got himself protection from being prosecuted. So I don't know, but again, Arum knowing the legal system, this would be innit? Of all the people who know the legal system, it makes perfect sense if Bob Arum does know something to try and get the word out there that he wants to speak. I guess you could say, well, why wouldn't he just put the call in himself? Well, he could do. He could have. I guess Bob Arum could have just picked the phone up and said, "Listen, give me a deal and I'll chat." I don't know, but it just seems odd. That's all I can say. Why? Think of it the other way. A month ago, you was just singing this man's praises, talking about how much of a friend you were, talking about how you've met his kids. And now, you're essentially leaking confessions. I know Bob Arum hasn't said that, Kinahan confessed the exact crime to me, but this is the first time we've heard from anyone that Kinahan's admitted to being involved in criminal activity. That's, as far as the information we have, that's breaking. That's breaking news. So why would you do that against a man who you was just sucking off about how great he was and how much of a friend you were? Unless you were prepared to go further. Do you get what I'm saying? Look at, for example, Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is kept stum. He ain't said nada. He ain't said no. He ain't said he's cutting him off. He ain't said nothing. So to see Bob go to this length and now double down, fair enough, yeah. If this news had come out on the same day, if this was, for example, included in the first breakup message from Bob, you could just say, okay, he misspoke. He went too far with it. But to then, my whole thing is, why is Bob doubling down with this? Yeah? At this particular point in time, okay, you made your separation speech. Now 3 days later, you're doubling down about and giving more. It's just odd. I don't get what. If it's not for the reasons I'm telling you, what would the reason be? Like I said, though, it could be, well, YB, he's old, he just slipped up in an interview. I don't know. Especially when, in between Bob's initial breakup message and the last 24 hours where this new breaking revelation came out, the Fury versus White press conference was on. So you'd think if Bob Arum was so chatty-patty and wanted to just chat all the place up, why was it that Team Fury completely banned any questions on Kinahan? So again, on the Fury versus White press conference, you've got the whole Kinahan thing's been shut down. There weren't any questions allowed about Kinahan. So you've gone from that to 3 days ago to 2 days after that, now dropping this about, oh, well, he been running his mouth to me, talking about how he feels guilty and how he wants to get away from his criminal life. It's just a bad look, and I can't lie, this to me feels like Team Fury to some extent are melting down right now. They're melting down. They haven't got, traditionally, and that's one thing I have, even though it's negative, that is one thing I've praised Team Fury about in the past. Team Fury have always maintained consistent messaging. Even when the Wilder fights kept falling through and they kept blaming C19, they always had the same message. I've done videos on that before. Frank Warren would say it, Bob Arum would say it, Tyson Fury would say it, John Fury would say it, the same message. Oh, well, we can't do anything, it's C19. Now, you've got Fury completely silent and banning people from answering questions. You've got Bob Arum running his fucking beak, talking about dropping revelations, even though he hasn't been prompted. It's not a good look, and it implies to me that some people are sweating. I think Bob's sweating. Because if he ain't, like I said, someone explained to me, why give this for? Why give that away for? Because you know Kinahan's under pressure right now. Now, if I know one of the people I know, if I know someone close to me or involved in my business with me is under pressure from the feds, why would I come out publicly and say, oh, yeah, well, to be fair, I can't lie to you, he did confess to me that he... Think about it, of all the times, of the last 2 years, where Kinahan wasn't directly under pressure, yeah, Bob could have come out and said, yeah, well, I love Daniel, and he did say to me once that he wants to get away, and he's done bad things in the past, and fair enough, isn't it? But the point is, people, I follow behaviour. Why now? Are you telling me the last X amount of time, it's never crossed Bob's mind, and in fact, to the contrary, Bob's been saying about, no, he's clean, never, I've never seen anything like it. No way is he involved in any criminal activity. Now though, now all of a sudden the Fed's sniffing, you want to be out here being chatty-patty, talking about, well actually, you know, even though I've spent the last 2 years reassuring everyone and shutting it down, saying how ridiculous it was. Actually, since you mention it, he did tell me that he was, do you know what I'm saying? It just seems, I don't believe in coincidences, and especially coincidences like this. I think Bob knows something. I don't think Bob's involved in the day-to-day activities, but a lot of things in boxing don't make sense. It's like Al Heyman. Now, people have criticised Kinahan for trying to be all in the video, like Pete did. Yeah, people have criticised Daniel Kinahan for trying to be all in the video, like P. Diddy, 100%. Meanwhile, who's the opposite of that? Al Heyman. You don't even get a picture of the guy, and I think that's for a reason. I don't believe anyone who's kosher is that. No one sees the guy. So I think Al Heyman is the embodiment of what we say about good criminals. Keep your head down. I'm sorry, but... And also, when you look at the numbers as well, Al Heyman's been losing money. If you look at the... Al Heyman's being sued, allegedly, for losing about $500 million. Because he's been paying these fighters heaps of money and not getting nothing back for it. And again, Al Heyman and Kinahan / MTK have very similar business models. Yeah, and if you actually look at all their if you notice, look at the fighters that MTK and Al Heyman manage. What do they all say? We've all never seen fighters sing someone so many praises. Oh, they're so good. They pay me so much. They don't charge any management fees. All them things, and that's what McGuigan said. McGuigan said, listen, we can't compete with that. Yeah, we can't compete with not only not charging management fees, but actually paying these guys more. That's not how business works. If you're running a management company, your whole revenue model is charging a percent. How can you not do that and then on top of that give benefits out? I've heard Kinahan and Al Heyman buy cars and houses and all sorts of madness. That's why the fighters all flock to these management organisations. But the question is, what's the infrastructure behind that? There isn't a real business behind it. There's got to be something else funding it. You can't afford... A management business can't run on 0% management fees. It's impossible. It don't work like that. So the question is, where's the cash flow coming from? Where's the real money coming from? There you go then. And I think, because when you look at it, boxing's really one of the last sports that doesn't have there's no real infrastructure. It's a bunch of random dudes just chipping in, isn't it? It's not like the NFL where you've got big organisations and a big regulatory body. Boxing's all just loosey-goosey. So, anyway, here we are. Team Fury melting down, in my opinion. Bob Arum's chatty patty. He knows something. He want that queen for a day, 100%. He begging for the queen for a day right now. Yeah, and Bob should have really just come out and said, listen, I'm nervous, I'm old, yeah, I don't want to, because when you get old, yeah, you don't, the worst thing Bob wants to do right now is spend, because he ain't got 5 years, he ain't got 2 years, if you get what I'm saying. Bob knows everyone else can handle a 5-bid, yeah. Bob, he ain't got a 5 in him. If Bob goes jail, he done. You understand? He cooked. And that's often, you have to look at the motivations for why people do the things they do. Bob's in the most vulnerable position right now. If there is any involvement, because he's so old. Yeah? And Bob's probably thinking, you know what, I'm so old, I can't afford to be spending the next, even if it's a year, I just can't afford it. I must go chatty patty. I must start chatting. I must start, you know what I'm saying? I must go queen for a day and end up running my mouth 100%. But it's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out. And what I will say is, I'm glad that I haven't put any money on this fight. People who know me know I've already told you that I believe Fury is the favourite in this fight. But in terms of the odds, if you put 100 quid on Fury, you only get 120 back. If you put 100 quid on Dillian, you get about 600 back. So the point is, with the odds that tight, I didn't like the odds before this, if you get what I'm saying. Although I was thinking about putting some money on Fury, but as just a kind of a spread trade, just to make a little bit of coin. But now there's no way. Why? Well, again, do I think Fury's involved in anything nefarious? I don't know. But again, bear in mind that whole story about Martin Carefoot and how he came out and said that Fury had paid him, or Team Fury, or the Kinahans had paid him to lie. That whole thing is fishy. Like I said, do I know? I don't know. Yeah? There's a lot of things in this world I don't know about. Could I sit here and tell you Fury's 100% clean? I can't do that. Now, again, if he isn't, bear in mind how close the odds are. If Fury isn't clean in this stuff, and again, bear in mind, people, look at the information we've got. Why has Tyson Fury shut down all the questioning about the Kinahan situation? If you're clean, yeah, why wouldn't you just say, listen, even if you wanted to continue working with him, if you're clean, you say, listen, I don't know, whatever Dan's got going on is his business. I'm completely clean, and it is what it is. I'm going to carry forward. Dan's been good to me until anything happens in court. That's how it's going to go. Fury didn't do that. Fury shut it all down, and in the press conference went moist towards Dillian, which I believe is because there was some sort of agreement. Tyson Fury agreed, listen Dillian, I'm going to start being friendly with you again, and we can just be friends, best friends, because I can't afford for this thing to, I don't want you airing out me working with a narco-trafficante. Yeah? That's what makes sense to me. Bear in mind as well, people, we know Fury was roasting Dillian for weeks. You tell me, is it a coincidence? Dillian shows up and Fury's wet as a paper bag in the toilets. Moist, I thought, what the fuck? But it makes sense. So on that note, people, bearing in mind all the things we know, I put all that circumstantial evidence in. Can I sit there and say Fury clean? No, I can't. So on that basis, if Fury isn't clean, to whatever level, imagine the stress you're going to have right now going into the fight. And at them tight odds, there's no way. Now, if this fight was 50-50 at the bookies, I'd still ride with Fury because there's enough buffer there. But when you're only going to make 20% anyway, and you've got, think about it. If you are involved to some level, you're gonna be having sleepless nights, stress, and whatever else. So for me, the Fury versus White fight's a no-no in terms of gambling. There wasn't enough edge in it anyway. Even if without this stuff, the edge was skeptical. Now, it's a no-no. Now again, in terms of work, people know me, know that I don't like making predictions unless I'm putting coin up. Because for me, that's what you call woofing. For me to sit here and tell, yeah, Fury's definitely going to win, but you ain't got no coin up. I think the odds now are something like 80, 85, 15 or something like that. So, can I tell you, I'm more than 85% sure that Fury's going to win? No. Because if I did, I'll be putting coin on it, and I'm not. So Fury isn't more than an 85% favourite, which is, there's very few fights really you're going to get someone who's more than 85% favourite. So I'm just putting that out there to warn anyone. If there was ever, I mean, in terms of the upset odds have gone up, although the betting odds have not reflected that, in my opinion. Well, they haven't, categorically. Despite this news coming out, the betting odds have actually strengthened in Fury's favour. So I'm just gonna, there's good bets to take, and there's bad bets. This for me is a bad bet right now, 100%. But anyway, I'm intrigued to see how this situation plays out. I mean, well, yeah, bottom line, I'm intrigued, and it's the fact we're seeing Team Fury all rocky looking now. They're not maintaining that unified front. You got Bob going on a mad one. You got Fury completely, what's the word? He's completely just undercover right now. Dodges slipping and sliding from all the Kinahan shots. It's just it's messy, super messy. I think a unified front would have been much better. I think they should have came out in the White versus Fury press conference and just addressed it one time. All this mystery stuff, it's not a good look. It doesn't put me at ease anyway. But we'll find out how it plays out anyway going forward. 100%. But I'll tell you what, one thing I will say, if Bob Arum ends up whatevered, yeah, if we hear Bob Arum passes away in the next month, bullshit. I'm telling you now, I'm calling bullshit on that. Yeah, because to be fair, he is old. So if there's anyone you can get rid of in a pretty smart way, trust me, right now the best witness to have go against you would be someone like Bob Arum, because he old and you can make him slip over. Oh, he slipped down the stairs. He took, you know what I mean? He had a harder, all them kind of things that. But I'm telling you now, if in the next month or two something happens, you know it's bullshit. And I'm calling it right now, 100%, no doubt.